How's it going, everybody? This is the newest episode of the Spooky Mysteries. We're going to be going over urban legends, true or false. We've done this before, but a lot of these have basis in reality. As all urban legends do, there's always a source where they come from, which is how they become so popular because there's always that element of truth. But like we've been doing the past couple of weeks, we start off with what's going on in the news and things like that. And by the time you see this, it's already been like a week since it's actually happened, but it's still an ongoing issue. This week, with all the turmoil in the world, I have decided to not talk about history this week. So we will go over some of the spookiest urban legends. Like always, we'll go over our call to action, which is follow all my socials and make sure you leave a comment because that helps with my engagement. And I always answer everyone back if it's a worthy comment. If it's just like, I like the stuff, I'll just be like, thank you. I'll give you a thumbs up, But if you actually leave me a comment, I will reply. If you watch my TikToks, I don't like getting into politics because that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to educate. But this is a little bit of politics right here that I'm about to mention, okay? So, the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, and Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, both got one over on the current president. They both have gotten the terrorists postponed with minimal give to the U.S. president. Now, it depends on who you talk to. They'll be like, the president, made Canada and Mexico bow to his demands. No, this is what happened, right? So, one of the gives that Mexico had to do was... Wait, got a guest. Nobody? Okay. One of the gives that Mexico had to do was move 10,000 troops to the border. They're not moving new troops. They're not recruiting. They're just moving around what they already have in place. That's not much of a give, is it? Canada, they're enacting a czar. I can't remember what the exact term is, but it's something czar to help reduce the drugs coming in and all that stuff. They're going to up the ante. They're going to put in drones, more security, more tech to help with the prevention of this stuff. That's pretty big, right? You would think that that's a big win for the U.S. to make them do all this stuff. But guess what? Canada was already going to do that. All they did was move up the timeline on when they were going to implement it. That's not really a big win, so the U.S. got nothing out of that. But yeah, it's been stopped for now. Things are slowly going back to normal. Gas prices have returned to what they were when Trump took office. Grocery prices kind of leveled out a little bit. They haven't gone down, but they've gone up just slightly, but not enough for me to say something because everyone else is making a huge deal about it. I don't know where you go shopping. I go to Kroger and Costco, and I don't have an issue with them. My price hasn't really changed that much. Having tasted defeat, the president has set his eyes on the Gaza Strip. Now, I'm not going to get into that because that's a whole nother story. I got friends on both sides of that battle. I don't talk about that because that is too touchy for me. So, let's get on with our stories, everybody. First, we're going to talk about the first legend that we're going to talk about is the Cannibal Girl of the Metro. Now, to let y'all know, I have never been to a state that had a metro system like New York or in places like Japan or China where they use the subway system. I've never been there. I've never been anywhere like that uses that kind of system. There's a couple of states in this United States that does that, but I've never done it, right? I'm not a big fan of public transportation. I have an issue with people driving me around. I get anxiety, a panic attack kind of situation. No, I don't like it. I don't like getting in the cars, other people. I drive. So let's move on. So from what I've seen, it is that it can get hectic and overwhelming, especially for minors. So yeah, can you imagine, being a kid in a busy subway trying to stay close to your mom or dad or whatever, and it's just jam-packed, busy, bustling, people all over the place. It could be a stressful situation. But our story takes this to a whole nother level. The child that this happened to, the child in question, is a little girl named Rosarito Sanchez Sierra, age 8. So a little 8-year-old got lost in the metros of Mexico. On September 7th, 1972, the little girl was taking the metro with her mother to work like they had done 1,000 times before. On Metro Line 1 at the Tacubaya station, while rushing to get on the metro, witnesses that saw what happened said that the little girl had gotten separated from her mother in the crowded station. That's when her mother's panic began to set in. So the little girl gets separated. The mom starts looking around, trying to find her, right? Authorities that ran an investigation to reconstruct what had happened using information given by the mother and witnesses that had seen what had happened, or what they believe is what happened, is that once she got separated, she just got swept away. Like the crowd moving all as one just took her, and that's what happened. The police searched for weeks without finding anything that says that she was there. They couldn't find any signs of life, that there was someone, an active child or someone living there. But what they had found, or what they found is one thing, or a couple of things. They did find human remains. It could have been one of two things. Either people who were disturbed and decided that that was the only way to deal with their lives, in other words, taking their own lives on a train, or a dumping ground for criminals to dispose of their enemies. Now, this is the 70s, and during the 70s, talking about suicides was not a common occurrence. It was taboo. It's barely been a thing in our generation. So imagine back then. So the police did not take that they didn't take it as a serious thing. They didn't think that was, they thought it was just a dumping ground for criminals. Some of them might have been suicides. Others, the cops didn't believe this, right? So the search goes on. The police believe that the bodies and the child missing had no connections, so they continue to search. So they see the bodies. They're like, this has nothing to do with what we're doing down here. Let's move on. They keep going, right? Pretty sure they investigated the bodies, but that wasn't what these detectives were there for. So they continue searching. Then finally, the good news that they had been hoping for, on November 22nd, they had found the girl in the tunnels between the Tacubaya and Juanacatlan stations. She was alive, well, and alert, with only the exception is that she just looked homeless. Which is probably why it took so long for anyone to find her. Because they were looking for a little girl that's, scared, emaciated, because hasn't eaten 8 days, 17th through the 22nd? Yeah, something like that. Where's the date? The 7th through the 22nd. That's a lot more than 8 days. But yeah, so they were looking for someone like that, but they weren't looking for a child that looked completely homeless. The police held a press conference to inform the public that she was safe and receiving medical attention. After the conference, everyone had noticed that the girl was unusually calm, like she knew that she was going to be found safe. Being lost for 15 days, she was surprisingly calm, but the next part is where it gets kind of crazy. And this is where it turns into an urban legend. So this is a missing child. It's an actual case. And now this is where it turns into an urban legend, because like I said, all urban legends usually have some truth behind them. And this is where that turns into an urban legend. The 8-year-old girl proceeded to tell her part of what happened. When she got lost, she had said that while in the metro, she was distracted by the large crowds and got swept away with the crowd. Losing sight of her mother, she did whatever she could to try and find her, but was unable to. Eventually, she got scared and proceeded to go into the tunnels. She had said, "I was very afraid. I didn't know what to do. I had never been separated from my mother. I saw that there were some tunnels, so I went in. I stayed there in a corner, and even though it was dark, I didn't want to leave. But I started to feel very hungry. I had already spent hours without anything in my stomach. Hunger made me move. I walked and walked through the tunnels until I started hearing strange noises, as if they were animals. I approached the sound and saw something terrifying. It was the body of a dead man, and with him, many rats, eating his flesh. It made me sick and scared, but I was so hungry, it felt like my guts were eating each other. So I went over and did the same. Just like the rats, I chewed the meat little by little. It was hard and tasted like iron, but I kept up with the rats. I ate and ate. I realized that his left ankle was in very bad condition, as if it had been fractured by a fall. So I chewed there because it looked easier to bite. So much so that it came off, and I was able to eat the foot by myself, away from the rats. So remember, the remains that were found were remains, but apparently before they were remains, it was a body. And her and the rats took it apart. Now, this, like I said, this is where it turns into an urban legend. There is no confirmation whether it is true or not. Hey, what's going on? Kill the lamb. Got to mark wherever I interact so I can cut that out later. So, after hearing this, the police immediately looked for anyone that might be able to confirm this. They had supposedly found 3 people that could confirm this. They had seen a girl at the end of one of the platforms kneeling down and making strange noises, almost like an animal chewing a bone. After hearing this, the police had decided not to add it to their report. They had understood why she had done this because she needed to eat, and being so young, did not know any better. I mean, where else is she going to get food in the dark tunnels, right? It's either that or she would have eaten the rats. What authorities did do was to refer her to the Mexican Institute of Emotional and Psychological Trauma. So they sent her to an institute to get some help, psychiatry, things like that, because that has to be very disturbing to be so hungry that you eat someone's foot. That's how she survived, though. She was lost for 18 days. How else was she going to survive? And there have been updates to the report, right? Because like I said, this is a real story, but the urban legend part is that little part right there that she ate somebody. And it wasn't added to the report, so at this point it's just hearsay. So what an update to the report is that she lived a normal life, normal, calm life. She had passed away in 2010 at the age of 42 after developing some stomach issues, and she passed in her sleep at ease. So that has to be traumatic. The only people that are going to know the exact truth would have been her. Now, could she have taken the fame and fortune and been like, I really did it? Or could she have gone to the institute and psychiatric evaluations and the psychologist and everyone convinced her that it was just her mind constructing a way to stay sane? Because she had to eat somebody. She had to eat something. So maybe in her mind, they try to convince her that it was a body. It was meat that she had found, so body, instead of her actually having to hunt and kill a rat. Her mind might have twisted it and said that it was already dead. It was a person that had died. That might be what they used to try to suppress it that way. Whatever, right? Like I said, the only people that know what really happened is going to be her. Nobody else. But then again, it's been said that there was 3 people that knew what happened. But again, it's never been reported. Yeah, let's move on. My throat's a little dry. I forgot to get a drink. The next urban legend that I'm going to cover is the next one that I'm going to cover is over a vampire. This story is another one that takes place in Mexico's metro system. So, like y'all know, all my stories take place in Latin America. A lot of them focus in Mexico. Why? Because I'm from Mexico. Well, not I'm from Mexico. My family's from Mexico. But if you have a story you want me to tell, please let me know, and I'll look for it. This story is another one that takes place in the Mexico's metro, which, from what I've read, the entire network system is haunted from the roaming Aztec warriors and even ghosts that drifted in from the neighboring graveyard. This story takes place on the 7 line, or the orange line, and the end of the line is called Barranca del Muerto. So the number 7 line, or the orange line, and it takes place at the very end, last stop, which is Barranca del Muerto, or the ravine or gully of the dead. So why was it called that? It's because this line was built on a mass graveyard, and not just any mass graveyard, a military graveyard. It was just a trench filled with bodies of those that were killed during the Mexican Revolution. So, of course, there would be disgruntled spirits. Now, to begin this story, it starts at the early morning hours, so early that the person that this story happened to was still on the train from the night before, on the last train stop, on the last train, the last stop, and the last person. So this dude had been on the train so long that it was now morning. You know, the train was going in for the night, stopping, switching guard, whatever, right? Switching conductor. This lone man on the train awakens from a deep sleep when the train suddenly stops. When he looked around, he noticed that he was alone, or so he thought. The sudden stop of the train indicated that it was at its final stop for the night. He proceeded to the exit and got off the train and wandered onto the tracks where he witnessed a fight between two men, and it looked like the shorter of the two was losing. So he gets there, gets off the train, looks around. He's like, well, I got to follow the tracks to get out of this area, get back to where I'm going, right? He sees off in the distance two drunks fighting. He's like, man, that little dude's getting his ass whooped. So he went and tried to stop this fight to separate the two and calm the situation down. So he's like, man, I don't want to watch a guy get killed. Let me go stop this real quick. When he got closer, he realized one thing. This was not an ordinary fight. The taller man was biting down on the other guy's neck. He stopped, saw all the blood, which was just flowing out of the guy's neck. He saw this and yelled, "Vampire," and turned and ran as fast as he could all the way to the nearest police station. He gets there, he's out of breath, and he tries to explain there's a vampire in the train tracks killing someone. The cops' reaction is nothing but ridicule. They're like, dude, you're drunk. There's nothing there. The vampires don't exist, right? So what came from this is nothing, and that's it. Sorry. So that's how this legend got started. Some guy got off the train, went over there, vampire. They're like, no, you're dumb. Go away. Don't waste our time. And like I said, it could have been a vampire. It could have been anything. Could have just been a fight. Someone crazy bit him. You know, we've had that happen in Florida. Some say this legend was a real story that was just misconstrued. It was just a fight between two drunks, and the neck biting was just part of the fight. Like I said, it's happened in Florida. Others say this is just one of those stories that they use to keep the children and young adults aware of their surroundings through scare tactics, like La Mano Peluda or La Llorona. And like I said, Mexicans are not Mexicans, just the Hispanic culture is very guilty of this. They like to control through fear. I've been told about La Mano Peluda, La Llorona, things like that. Why? Don't go out at night. Stay close by. Don't get out of bed. La Mano Peluda will grab you from under your bed. I always talk about this one because this traumatized me as a child. The disembodied hand that would grab you from under your bed and take you away if you got out of bed in the middle of the night. I talk about that way too much. I think like every third episode I bring it up. It's a traumatic thing for me, okay? Both are reasonable to believe, jumping to conclusions, or a teenager story that fell asleep and got lost on the last train. But one thing is certain, that the threat of a vampire waiting for someone at the end of the line is enough to keep anyone alert and awake. Yeah, so just the thought of there could be something down there is enough to keep me awake. I'll be like, nope, I got to get off. So the next one isn't really scary. So the next one up is another metro. It's not really scary, but it is a ghost sighting. And this one is over the Aztec Warrior that I mentioned in the above story, right? And the story before this. This is now the blue line in Mexico. This line goes through the heart of Mexico City. But 500 years ago, it would have been the heart of Tenochtitlan, the famed city of the Aztecs. On this line, many ghosts and things that go bump in the night have been spotted at both the Pino Suarez station and the Zocalo station, and the tunnels in between. The most persistent of these would be the Aztec man. Now, there is not just one sighting, but many with a wide variation of the way they appear, which might indicate that there might be more than just one Aztec ghost. Or maybe it's just a ghost and people freak out and they can't, really identify it. They're like, it looked like an Aztec warrior. People get scared, descriptions go out the window. One thing is for sure is that it is a male. He is always in indigenous clothing before the conquest had happened. So an ancient Indian or indigenous person, as whatever you want to say. In some stories, it is said that he is seen crying. Maybe he cries for a time before the new city was built, wanting his home. Wouldn't it be good to know why he cries or what keeps him there? Well, some people have heard him. In some of the stories, it is said that he is able to talk to people and that he's very friendly. He's not a terrifying ghost. He's like talking to people. The only problem with that, though, he only talks to certain people. And those are people that know Nahuatl. Not modern day Spanish. Not the Spanish I know, but the indigenous Spanish. The Spanish of my peoples, I don't know that. And y'all know that I struggle with speaking Nahuatl. I can't pronounce half the words. Now, Nahuatl's not a... My voice left there for a second. Nahuatl's not a dead language. It has survived the conquest and 5 centuries after the Aztec Empire had fallen. It is the second most spoken language in the Americas behind the Inca tongue Quechua. Now, a lot of people have issues with me saying Aztec Empire. It wasn't Aztec. It was like the Mexica, which is fine. But layman's term, the Aztecs. Even there's a lot of talk about that, but I don't care. I did say it was a problem, but not a big problem. It's only a problem for those that don't speak Nahuatl. Me, so I wouldn't be able to talk to him. He seems to find those that he is able to communicate with. Some say that he has asked where is he at and what happened to his home. Almost like he's lost the time and he doesn't realize that what has happened to him. It's like he just woke up and was like, where am I? What's going on here? What am I on? It's like he doesn't realize that he had passed. Other people have said he is a proud warrior waiting to join his fellow warriors for some long-forgotten battle. Or like I said previously, waiting to go to the underworld and face his trials. And the people that see him as a warrior, he is in Jaguar Knight regalia. To some, he is a simple peasant looking upon the modern world in cactus fiber clothing, because that's how they made their clothes, right? But looking upon the modern world, disappointed in what it's become. So like that old commercial about the Native Americans and not littering and the tear coming down the eye. This is the Mexican version of that. Yeah, so he's just sad about what we've done to this place. Now, most ghost stories or urban legends just stay in inner circles among friends to scare one another. But this one has made it to the news multiple times. So, like I said, most people just like, oh, did you hear about this ghost over here and whatever, right? Campfire stories. It just stays within groups and it spreads. That's how these stories spread. I'll tell 5 people and one of those 5 people will be like, oh, someone told me this story and it's a friend of a friend. Campfire stories. But this one actually made it to the news so many times because so many people had seen this. People who have seen him believe he is a real ghost that has been trapped in our world and unable to find peace, or simply wanting to return to his lost city, his lost empire. Now that's kind of sad because this isn't just like a ghost out to terrify people, out to haunt. This is someone who's just lost and wants to know where is he at and where are his people. That's sad. So, our last story is not in the metro, but in a place just as scary, just as ominous as the metro at night. And this is an alleyway. Now, I've talked about like the Devil's Alley before, but this was in another part of Mexico, and in that story, they had killed a priest. So, and it became haunted, right? This is a completely different area. A small little passageway close to what is now downtown Mexico City, in the clearing of Calle San Martin and meeting up on Calle La Zanca. This alley was a dark, scary-looking passage due to the trees that covered the way. So almost like the other story too, right? Because The trees had overgrown and made it completely dark, even during daytime. Down that road was a little lonely shack. At the very end of the road, little lonely shack with no modern amenities of the time, with one lone occupant that had suffered from tuberculosis, which was common at the time. So either due to the sick person at the end of the alley or the name of the area, not many people went down there due to the way it looked, dark and gloomy. So if people weren't going down there during the day, ain't nobody going down there at night. So with many avoiding this is where the rumors and legends start to form. One such tale is that at the strike of midnight, the devil himself is said to appear for the majority of people. Oh, it's said to appear. And for the majority of people, they would avoid this. But for young thrill seekers, young and dumb, this was the area to go to challenge each other, right? One of these young thrill seekers, we'll call him Juan. That is a made-up name because in all these stories, they never give the individuals a name. There's like, oh, this young man. No, we'll give him a name, Juan. So Juan was out with his friends having a good time, partying, drinking, whatever they were doing at the time, hanging out, right? And one of them said, I dare one of y'all to go down the alley of the devil. With no one stepping forward, Juan said that he will do it. With some liquid courage in him, he slowly advanced down the devil's alley. About halfway down, he noticed someone or something leaning against a tree. He thought to himself, it was some thugs, it was somebody looking to rob or beat him up, right? Or both, beat him up and rob him. Or worse, murder him. So he prepared himself, clenched his fist. He was ready for a fight. He was like, okay, let's do this. If I'm going to go down, I'm going down swinging. So he was ready for this fight. Because, the only people that would be in Devil's Alley were people that are up to no good or young, stupid people like him. As Juan approached his figure, a strange glow illuminated the area around the alley. And the tree that he was leaning upon showed what he was walking towards. Just before Juan was a demon or a creature so horrendous and laughing an evil laugh that he could feel the earth tremble below him. And he ran. Pure instinct. He went to pure instinct and fear, driven by the flight or fight response. He decided flight. He turned and ran. And it is said that as he left the tunnel, you could feel this demon try to grab him from behind, just escaping death. Juan ran up to his friends and told them what he saw. And that's how the legend grew amongst other groups his age, thus spurring a new wave of legends about the alley. So this caught on more. More people are going to try to do this, right? It also caught the attention of other survivors of this creature. So other people who have done this, they're like, I saw that too. Again, these are legends. So I want to be cool and, jump on the bandwagon whether I've seen it or not. This is how legends start. And they add their own details and it grows. Eventually, it's going to be the demon with wings and horns and eyes that glow like fire. Or someone's going to be like, it's a short little imp with whatever, horns and claws with spikes along his back. That's the chupacabra. But you know what I mean? Like, they'll add their own stories. There'll be some commonality between them, but it will be however people want it to evolve. And so many came forward about what they saw. No one went down that alley after dark, not even by mistake. So the story grew bigger than itself. That people were just like, no, we're not going down there no more. So, after a while, authorities took notice of this. They're like, you know what, let's fix this. We're going to take care of this issue. They went and spoke to an expert in these matters, so someone that knows about the dark arts. The authorities were told that to keep this demon in the alley and not roam the streets and terrorize the neighborhood, they would need to leave jewels and gold as a sacrifice to keep the spirit at bay, to appease the spirit. But they had to go to the tree and leave it there on the tree. At first, no one wanted to go. No one wanted to go by themselves. I don't want to see the devil. Man, bump that. I'm staying. But eventually, they all said, let's all go together. We can't take all of us. So they go during the day, drop off the gold and jewels on the tree, and then book it. And eventually, those that were superstitious enough started noticing that the items that they left the night before were gone, leading them to believe that it was working. After some time, the the challenges of going down the alley began again. But this time, a couple of tough sailors, big, tough, burly sailors that have been out at sea surviving hurricanes and storms that would terrify you and I, but they were just like, it ain't nothing but a little rain. So they're like, what do you think about the devil in the alley? They thought about it, and they're like, it's not a devil. I think it's someone pulling the wool over these good people, taking their money and jewels. So they decided that, you know what? We're going to put it into this. No one's robbing good people. So they went down the alley and determined to stop the thief from robbing these good people. The sailors went down that alley at the exact stroke of midnight. Suddenly, the demon had appeared. Raising a light, the demon with long black horns and a tail appeared, reeling from shot. A sudden pain tore through the body as if a fire had been lit deep within his soul. Screaming out in pain that the devil wanted to take him away. The fire was a red-hot poker that one of the sailors had placed on the thief. So, the sailors went in at midnight, and they dressed up like a devil. They're like, we're going to wait for this person. And someone did show up to try to steal the gold. And they caught him. And the guy took off because he got scared. So, the thief took off scared as fast as he could. The sailors took off their disguise, laughing, something that they had made just for this night. So, the next day, the sailors did it again in case there was more would-be thieves. This time, they stayed until dawn. No one showed up. So, their plan worked. No one's stealing anymore. Days later, the people noticed that there was a local that was kind of freaking out. And he was sick and he wasn't feeling good. And he had burns on his body that appeared out of nowhere. But eventually he got better. And people were like, wait a minute. You were the thief. So, realizing who he was, repenting for what he had did or what he had done, he gave the jewels to the church as penance. This place no longer exists. It has given way to the bustling metropolis that is now Mexico City, that we all know, that we've all seen. So this alley of the devil has gone with time. It only exists in stories like me telling it. And you'll never know what happens anymore. Is it true or not? Is there a tree that still has the devil in it? Who knows? We'll never know. I heard something move over there. Probably my dogs. So, this was a short episode, 35 minutes. I'm going to try to keep them between 35 and 45 minutes. I had a lot of fun doing this research. I read a ton of stories, and these are the ones I picked because they have good messages. One, the first story, which was the Pharaoh children. Yeah, not really a story, but it's a good scare story, right? The second one is the vampire one. Whether it's real or not, pay attention to where you're going. Don't fall asleep on the train and get lost. Don't fall asleep on the bus and get lost. Because that story translates to so many things on the bus, on a train, whatever, the last stop. That's why there's always a ghost story about the last stop on public transport. So, that's it, right? So, that's it for this week's episode of Spooky Mysteries. And as a recap, be aware of feral children in the dark. My voice is going a little bit. It's a little dry. Never stay till the last stop on the train system because you don't know what is waiting for you there. And keep an open mind so you can communicate with an ancient spirit. And do not steal from good people because you will be found out. Someone will find out that you're stealing, right? So, until next time, stay spooky, everybody. And follow me everywhere. Later.